Okay, folks, our first little lecture here is going to be on, yes, English Romanticism and the Romantic period. And those are two different things. So we're going to talk mostly about Romanticism as an idea, a movement, a direction. The Romantic period, which also matters to us a lot because we're looking at that period, extends from toward the end of the 18th century, toward that turn into the 19th century, right about where we begin with the class, um, on to the beginning of the reign of Queen Victoria. Now then, Romanticism itself, though, style, an idea of thought that we're going to talk about, and neither of these things have to do with romance in terms of hugs, kisses, and things like that, or the medieval romance as a literary genre or style. It's not like Shakespeare's romances or anything like that. So we've got a word used a bunch of different ways. Let's get after the one we're after. The Romantic movement can be seen as a reaction against neoclassical values, those literary values found in 18th century English writing. Hierarchy, acceptance of hierarchy, conformity, order, so much emphasis on structure, uncompromising things, and stuff like that. Now then, as this comes to English literature, we would find it showing up a bit earlier in German literature and later in American and such as that. But in English literature, you would talk about it from about the end of, as I just said, the 18th century to the beginning of Victoria's reign, what really held center, and we are going to care about it. We're going to look at William Blake and Robbie Burns and William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge out of the so-called first generation of Romantics, and a bit of Byron and the Shelleys, Percy Shelley, Mary Shelley, and John Keats from what's called the second generation. And we'll note that when we talk about the Romantic period, we don't include the Victorians, but some of them, a lot of them, would consider themselves romantics. Robert Browning called himself a romantic poet. Really wasn't. His heritage from the Romantics matters, though. We would think about that. Some, even considerably later in the period, I would term the pre-Raphaelites, the Rossettis, and those folks that we're going to look at as romantics in that conceptual term. So we've got that all together, either straightened out or there to confuse you. Let's talk now about romantic values and tell you first of all that up on Canvas you've got a nice handout, Romanticism, that has this list and probably a bit more complete thing in organization. What I'm going to say out loud here, first up, nature is good. Yes, you look at wild nature, tame nature, anything that qualifies as nature, it is good. And the closer it is to wild nature, quite often the better it is. Likewise, people are by nature good. We are born good. We aren't neutral. We are not, as a Calvinist would say, depraved by nature. No, we're perfectly good creatures, or at least when we haven't been damaged by the world, we're good creatures. We start out that way. And guess what? Ordinary people, plain old ordinary people, are just as important as those higher ones. Kings and nobles aren't better people than we are. Hell, they're just people. We're all people. Now, in wild nature, oh yes, romantic notion just enjoys, oh, dramatic things. waterfalls, great high cliffs, all of these things that set your breathing hard and your heart pounding and such as that. Sublime scenes. We've got a handout describing the sublime. These are more aesthetically worthwhile than structured and ordered ones. And spontaneity is often good. I won't say always good, because no, romantics aren't stupid enough to say that. But spontaneity is often good. Therefore, the English countryside with its birds and gardens and people tilling the soil and stuff like that, it's better than an industrial wasteland. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Or a teeming, dirty city. London is Wordsworth's great anthill on the plain, folks. An English garden, natural looking with a little artificial rill running through it and nicely aesthetically placed stones that just still look like wild nature, is better than a structured geometric form like Versailles, right? The King's Garden in France. No, we don't want that kind of structure. We want variety and possibility. And hey, the artistic productions of ordinary people matter. They have aesthetic value. Oh, yes. Finely crafted poems are wonderful things. Symphonies are great. But you know what? Folk music matters. These little songs composed by common ordinary people have their value. All of these things matter. They too are beautiful. And while we're in it on people, that tiller of the soil is a better person than an all-conquering king, if for no other reason than because he has less opportunity to do damage to the world. Dear old wild nature, we mentioned the waterfall and the cliffs and mountain climbing. This is all good. Go hiking in the wilderness. Get eaten by a bear? Clawed by a cougar? No shit, that doesn't sound fun. Well, that's okay. It's on the list anyhow. Yes, you really want the illusion of wild nature rather than the real thing, because being eaten by a bear is not fun. You need to be careful. You can go to Alaska and see wild nature, folks, and get stomped to death by a moose. No jokes. No joke. Moose kill more people, way more people than bears and quite a few other things in Africa. They're dangerous. Oh, well. In Alaska, not in Africa. Losing it, folks. Oh, well. Now then, back to our wrap-up. To the extent that humans are part of nature or in harmony with nature, we are good. We're perfectly wonderful little things here scurrying about this world with our part in it. And so when we are doing these nice, harmless things or these wonderful artistic things, we're great. But to whatever extent we've been damaged by civilization, that it has taken away this innocence and this beauty that goes with all of nature, to that extent we're flawed, lost, incomplete, or even out and out evil if we repudiate this world and set about destroying it. And that is one way, a pretty decent way, of looking at the romantic sensibility with this optimism regarding nature and people in nature. Some regards a naive optimism, but this is, yes, this nice, idyllic thing as we talk of getting ourselves back to the garden. And that's a line from a Joni Mitchell song, 20th century. Okay.